Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining today's reading. Today we'll be reading The Journey of Self-Discovery. All these books have been written by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. All these books have been published by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust International, and they have, with their permission, they have been provided in the Veda base by all the devotees' effort. This have been provided for us in the Veda base. So we thank everyone for giving the opportunity and to be able to read this online. So today, before reading the book, as usual, that we will be offering prayers to the deities and all to the Vaishnava Acharyas, take their permissions and blessings. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhamvitamscha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pascharya Deshatarine. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today's reading is The Journey of Self-Discovery. These were originally articles from Back to Godhead magazine, compiled into the form of a book. From the introduction. Are you in any way dissatisfied with your life as it now stands? Has the pursuit or even the achievement of the goals you have set for yourself become somewhat frustrating? If so, read on. For one acquainted with the spiritual wisdom of India, the ideal life is not a fast-paced competitive run through a self-serve consumer paradise. There is a higher measure of success and happiness than the number of high-class gadgets, baubles, and thrills one can zoom through the checkout counter rate before time runs out. An awakened person will try to learn something worthwhile along the way to gradually accumulate assets of permanent value. In the final analysis, the supreme accomplishment is to improve significantly the one position that is really ours to keep. Our consciousness, our sense of identity, our inner self. All else eventually slips away. Seen in this way, life becomes a journey of self-discovery, and that is the theme of this book. The journey of self-discovery is your guide to a new way of looking at life, a way proven to lead you to higher levels of awareness and satisfaction. Thousands of people like yourself are already experiencing these results. All it takes is some expert guidance, the kind available from a person who has already completed the journey, who knows the ways and means by which we can arrive safely at your destination. In the journey of self-discovery, you will become intimately acquainted with a spiritual master about whom Harvey Cox of Harvard School of Divinity said, Srila Prabhupada is, of course, only one of thousands of teachers, but in another sense, he is one in 1,000, maybe one in 1,000,000. According to Dr. Cox, One of America's leading Christian theologians, Srila Prabhupada's life was pointed proof that one can be a transmitter of truth and still be a vital and singular person. Srila Prabhupada, the founding spiritual master of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, translated over 40 volumes of the most essential works of Vedic literature. Complete sets of these books with original Sanskrit and Bengali texts have been purchased by thousands of university libraries around the world, and dozens of scholars have praised them. But that is not what you will find in the journey of self-discovery. In these pages, you will see Srila Prabhupada taking the essential truths of the timeless Vedic wisdom of India and communicating them live to persons like yourself in talks, conversations, and interviews. With gravity and weight, roses and thunderbolts, Srila Prabhupada delivers transcendental knowledge with maximum impact and precision. All the selections printed in the Journey of Self-Discovery originally appeared in Back to Godhead, the magazine Srila Prabhupada founded in India in 1944. When he came to America and started the Hare Krishna movement in 1966, he requested his new followers to take up the task of publishing the magazine. Ever since, Back to Godhead has served the vital function of bringing the Vedic knowledge to the contemporary world, addressing the spiritual needs of people confronting the frustrations of modern life. Authoritative and informative, the Journey of Self-Discovery is also easy to read. The anthology format allows you to approach the book in a variety of ways. You can read the Journey of Self-Discovery from start to finish, proceeding through the systematically arranged selections. Or you can glance over the table of contents and find a selection of particular interest. Because each selection is short and complete in itself, you can easily explore topics that attract your attention without having to go through the entire book. The principal lesson of this journey of self-discovery is that our conscious selfhood is not an accidental cosmic side effect, a fleeting electromagnetic discharge generated by a temporary configuration of subatomic particles at some point in space and time. Rather, each center of consciousness in itself is an absolute, irreducible unit of reality. As Srila Prabhupada tells physicist Gregory Benford, we don't say that scientific knowledge is useless. Mechanics, electronics, this is also knowledge. But the central point is Atma-gnana, self-knowledge, knowledge of the soul. And after we understand the soul, the quest for knowledge continues. Srila Prabhupada tells a press conference in Los Angeles, in the background of this body, you can find the soul, whose presence is perceivable by consciousness. Similarly, in the universal body of the cosmic manifestation, one can perceive the presence of the Supreme Lord, or the Absolute Truth, by virtue of the presence of superconsciousness. Just as we are individual and personal, the superconsciousness is also individual and personal. In the Vedic scriptures, the identity of the superconscious self is revealed to be Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada describes Krishna as the greatest artist, the source of all beauty and attraction. The real key to happiness and satisfaction, Srila Prabhupada explains, is discovering the eternal personal link between ourselves and the superconsciousness. This state is called Krishna Consciousness. And in the journey of self-discovery, you will learn how to achieve this, the highest and most pleasurable consciousness in your own life. Krishna Consciousness is loving consciousness. In the selection Absolute Love, Srila Prabhupada says to his audience, everyone is frustrated. Husbands, wives, boys, girls. Everywhere there is frustration because our loving propensity is not being utilized properly. Srila Prabhupada then goes on to explain how love is most fully experienced when directed toward the Supreme Person, Krishna, who can perfectly and completely reciprocate with everyone. This is the secret of lasting happiness. In Krishna, Enchanter of the Soul, Srila Prabhupada advises, a man is attracted by a woman. A woman is attracted by a man. And when they are united in sex, their attachment for this material world increases more and more. But our business is not to be attracted by the glimmer of this material world. Our business is to be attracted by Krishna. And when we become attracted by the beauty of Krishna, we will lose our attraction for the false beauty of this material world. Here, Srila Prabhupada stands in contrast to the many so-called spiritual teachers who promise their followers they can have it all, unrestricted material enjoyment as well as spiritual profit. In Shobhagya Spiritualist Expose, Srila Prabhupada gives an unsparing critique of deceptive gurus and spiritualists who mislead their followers. Srila Prabhupada did not manufacture his own spiritual process with a view to personal profit. Rather, he freely taught the specific meditation technique recommended in the Vedas for this age. In Meditation Through Transcendental Sound, Srila Prabhupada tells students at Boston's Northeastern University, if you take up this simple process, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you are immediately elevated to the transcendental platform. Those who progress on the journey of self-discovery are better able to understand and solve the world's problems. In Material Problems, Spiritual Solutions, we learn from Srila Prabhupada how we can practically apply Krishna consciousness to relieve the widespread suffering brought on by violence and food shortages. In the early 1970s, Srila Prabhupada gave a remarkably foresighted analysis of the failure of the communist system of government to provide happiness for its people. You will find a striking conversation in section 7, Perspectives on Science and Philosophy. In Evolution in Fact and Fantasy, Srila Prabhupada says, we accept evolution, but not that the forms of this species are changing. The bodies are already there, but the soul is evolving by changing bodies and by transmigrating from one body to another. The defect of the evolutionists is that they have no information of the soul. Ultimately, the journey of self-discovery leads from this material world to the spiritual world. In Entering the Spiritual World, Srila Prabhupada tells his listeners, everything in the spiritual world is substantial and original. The material world is only an imitation. It is just like a cinematographic picture in which we see only the shadow of the real thing. So for those who suspect that the real thing is something more than a soft drink, the journey of self-discovery will illuminate the path that leads to life's ultimate, most perfect destination. And for those who may not regard themselves as seekers, but are nevertheless curious about the philosophy of the Hare Krishna movement, the journey of self-discovery provides a thorough yet compact introduction. The publishers. Chapter 1, The Journey of Self-Discovery, The Physics of the Self. In October 1973, Dr. Gregory Benford, an associate professor of physics at the University of California at Irvine, visits Srila Prabhupada in the garden of the Los Angeles Krishna Center. In the course of their interviewing discussion about the possibility of scientific understanding of the soul, Srila Prabhupada declares, we don't say that this scientific knowledge is useless. Mechanics, electronics, this is also knowledge. But the central point is Atma-Gnana, self-knowledge, knowledge of the soul. Srila Prabhupada. What is the current scientific knowledge about the spirit soul? Dr. Benford. We have virtually no scientific knowledge about the soul. Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, we have actually made no advancement in scientific knowledge. Dr. Benford. Well, scientific knowledge is a different class of knowledge. Srila Prabhupada. Perhaps. There are so many departments of knowledge. The medical study of the body, the psychological study of the mind, and ultimately spiritual transcendental knowledge. The body and mind are simply the coverings of the spirit soul, just as the shirt and coat are coverings for your body. If you simply take care of the shirt and coat and neglect the person who is covered by the shirt and coat, do you think that this is advancement of knowledge? Dr. Benford. I think that there is no category of knowledge that is useless. Srila Prabhupada. We don't say that this scientific knowledge is useless. Mechanics, electronics, this is also knowledge. But different departments of knowledge differ in their comparative importance. For example, if someone wants to cook nicely, this is also a science. There are many different departments of knowledge. But the central point is Atmagnya, self-knowledge, the knowledge of the soul. Dr. Benford. The only form of knowledge that is verifiable in the sense of getting everybody to agree with it, is that which can be proved logically and experimentally. Srila Prabhupada. The science of the self can be verified logically. Dr. Benford. How so? Srila Prabhupada. Just consider your body. You once had the body of a child, and now you don't have that body anymore. You have a different body. Yet, anyone can understand that you once had the body of a child. So your body has changed, but you are still remaining. Dr. Benford, I'm not sure it is the same I. Srila Prabhupada, yes, you are the same I. Just as the parents of a child will say after he has grown up, oh, just see how our son has grown. He is the same person. His parents say so, his friends say so, his family says so. Everyone says so. This is the evidence. You have to accept this point because there is so much evidence. Your mother will deny that you are a different person, even though you have a different body. Dr. Benford, but I may not be the same being that I was. Srila Prabhupada, correct. Not the same means, for example, that a young child may talk nonsense now, but when he gets an adult body, he does not speak foolishly. Although he is the same person, along with his change in the body, he has developed different consciousness. But the spirit soul, the person is the same. He acts according to his body, that's all, according to his circumstances. A dog, for example, is also a spirit soul, but because he has a dog's body, he lives and acts like a dog. Similarly, when the spirit soul has a child's body, he acts like a child. When he has a different body, the same soul acts like a man. According to circumstances, his activities are changing, but he is the same. For example, now you are a scientist. In your childhood, you are not a scientist. So your dealings at that time were not those of a scientist. One's dealings may change according to circumstances, but the person is the same. Therefore, the conclusion is Tatha dehantara praptir dhirastatra namuhyati. When this body is finished, the soul gives it up and accepts another body. Bhagavad Gita 2.13. Tatha dehantara. Dehantara means another body. This is our Sanskrit knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita. When the spirit soul is injected into the womb of a woman, it forms a little body. Gradually, through the emulsification of secretions, the body develops to the size of a pea because of the presence of the spirit soul. Gradually, the body develops 9 holes: eyes, ears, mouth, nostrils, genitals, and rectum. In this way, the body is developed to completion in 7 months. Then consciousness comes. Dr. Benford, and at 7 months? Srila Prabhupada, yes. The child wants to come out. He feels uncomfortable. Therefore, he prays to God to kindly release him from the bondage. He promises that when he gets out, he will become a devotee of God. So after 9 months, he comes out of the womb. But unless his parents are devotees, due to circumstances, he forgets God. Only if the father and mother are devotees does he continue his God consciousness. Therefore, it is a great fortune to take birth in a family of Vaishnavas, those who are God conscious. This God consciousness is real scientific knowledge. Dr. Benford, is it true that the children of all such parents are somewhat spiritually superior to the children of other parents? Srila Prabhupada, generally, yes. They get the opportunity of being trained by the mother and father. Fortunately, my father was a great devotee. So I received this training from the very beginning. Somehow or other, I had this spark of Krishna consciousness, and my father detected it. Then I accepted my spiritual master. In this way, I have come to this stage of sannyas, the renounced monastic order. I am very much indebted to my father, for he took care of me in such a way that I became perfectly Krishna conscious. My father used to receive many saintly persons at our home, and to every one of them he used to say, "Kindly bless my son so that he may become a servant of Radharani, Lord Krishna's eternal consort." That was his only ambition. He taught me how to play the mridanga drum, although sometimes my mother was not very satisfied. She would say, "Why are you teaching him to play mridanga?" But my father would say, "No, no, he must learn a little mridanga." My father was very affectionate to me. Therefore, if due to past pious activities one gets a good father and mother, there is a great chance for advancing in Krishna consciousness. Dr. Benford, what will happen to you and your students next? Srila Prabhupada, we are going back to Krishna. We have got everything. Krishna's name, Krishna's address, Krishna's form, Krishna's activities. We know everything and we are going there. Krishna promises this in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam et sorjuna. One who knows me in truth scientifically, Krishna says, is eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. Upon leaving the body, he does not take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. Dr. Benford, how do you know that people return in some other form? Srila Prabhupada, we see that there are so many forms. Where do these different forms come from? The form of the dog, the form of the cat, the form of the tree, the form of the reptile, the forms of the insects, the forms of the fish. What is your explanation for all these different forms? That you do not know. Dr. Benford, evolution. Srila Prabhupada, not exactly. The different species are already existing. Fish, tiger, man, all of these are already existing. It is just like the different types of apartments here in Los Angeles. You may occupy one of them according to your ability to pay rent. But all types of apartments are nevertheless existing at the same time. Similarly, the living entity, according to his karma, is given facility to occupy one of these bodily forms. But there is evolution also, spiritual evolution. From the fish, the soul evolves to plant life. From plant forms, the living entity enters an insect body. From the insect body, the next stage is bird, then beast, and finally the spirit soul may evolve to the human form of life. And from the human form, if one becomes qualified, he may evolve further. Otherwise, he must again enter the evolutionary cycle. Therefore, this human form of life is an important juncture in the evolutionary development of the living entity. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.25, Krishna says, Yanti deva vrata devan, pitrun yanti pitru vrataha, bhutani yanti bhuteja, yanti madhya jinopimam. In other words, whatever you like, you can achieve. There are different lokas or planetary systems, and you can go to the higher planetary systems where the demigods live and take a body there. Or you can go where the pitas, our ancestors, live. You can take a body here in Bhuloka, the earthly planetary system. Or you can go to the planet of God, Krishna Loka. This method of transferring oneself at the time of death to whatever planet one chooses is called yoga. There is a physical process of yoga, a philosophical process of yoga, and a devotional process of yoga. The devotees can go directly to the planet where Krishna is. Dr. Benford. Undoubtedly, you are aware that there are a few people, both in Eastern and Western society, who feel it a bit more intellectually justifiable to be completely agnostic about matters of theology. They feel more or less that if God had wanted us to know something more about Him, then He would have made it more easily apprehendable. Srila Prabhupada, then you don't believe in God? Dr. Benford, I don't believe in God. I'm just not forming an opinion until I have some evidence. No, sorry about that. Dr. Benford, I don't not believe in God. I am just not forming an opinion until I have some evidence. Srila Prabhupada, but do you think that there is a God or not? Dr. Benford, I have a suspicion that there may be, but it is unverified. Srila Prabhupada, but you think sometimes that there may be God, do you not? Dr. Benford, yes. Srila Prabhupada, so you are in doubt, suspicion. You are not certain. But your inclination is that you think there is a God, is it not? Your knowledge being imperfect, you are in doubt, that's all. Otherwise, you are inclined to think of God. But because you are a scientific man, unless you perceive it scientifically, you do not accept. That is your position. But from your side, you believe in God. Dr. Banford, sometimes. Srila Prabhupada, yes. Sometimes or at all times, it doesn't matter. That is the position of everyone. As long as one is in the human form of life, he has a dormant consciousness of God. It simply has to be developed by proper training. It is just like anything else in life. For example, we have become a scientist by proper training, proper education. Similarly, the dormant consciousness of God or Krishna is there in everyone. It simply requires proper education to awaken it. However, this education is not given in the universities. That is the defect in modern education. Although the inclination to be Krishna conscious is there, the authorities are unfortunately not giving any education about God. Therefore, people are becoming godless, and they are feeling baffled in obtaining the true joy and satisfaction of life. In San Diego, some priestly orders are going to hold a meeting to investigate the reasons why people are becoming averse to religion and not coming to church. But the cause is simple. Because your government does not know that life, especially human life, is meant for understanding God, they are supporting all the departments of knowledge very nicely, except the principal department, God consciousness. Dr. Benford. So, of course, the reason is separation of church and state. Srila Prabhupada. Reasons there may be many, but the principal reason is that this age is the Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. People are not very intelligent. Therefore, they are trying to avoid this department of knowledge, the most important department of knowledge. And they are simply busy in the departments of knowledge in which the animals are also busy. Your advancement of knowledge is comprised of 4 things: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. For example, you are discovering so many lethal weapons, and the politicians are taking advantage of it for defending. You are discovering so many chemicals to check pregnancy, and people are using them to increase sex life. Dr. Benford, what do you think about the moon mission? Srila Prabhupada, that is also sleeping. You have spent so much money to go there and sleep, that's all. Otherwise, what can you do there? Dr. Benford, you can go there and land. Srila Prabhupada, you go there and sleep, that's all. Sleeping. You are spending billions and getting nothing in return. Dr. Benford, it's worth more than that. Srila Prabhupada, no, nothing more. Because these 4 principles, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, are the background. If you have no knowledge beyond this body, you cannot go beyond this bodily jurisdiction. You may have very gorgeous, polished bodily knowledge, but your whole range of activities is within these 4 principles of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. This knowledge is prevalent among the lower animals also. They know how to eat, how to sleep, how to have sexual intercourse, and how to defend. Dr. Benford, but they don't know anything about nuclear physics. Srila Prabhupada, that does not mean that you are improved over the animals. It is the same thing, only polish. You are improving from the bullock cart to the car, that's all. Simply a transformation of material knowledge. Dr. Benford, there is knowledge about the structure of the physical world. Srila Prabhupada, but it is waste of energy because in your activities you cannot go beyond this bodily jurisdiction of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The dog may sleep on the ground and you may sleep in a very nice apartment. But when you sleep, your enjoyment and the dog's enjoyment are the same. You may have so many electrical appliances and other material conveniences, but when you sleep, you forget everything. Therefore, this gorgeous sleeping accommodation is simply a waste of time. Dr. Benford. You seem to place emphasis on what knowledge does for you. What about the sheer joy of discovering how nature works? For example, now we think that we understand matter like this, pointing to the grass. We think that we know from experiments, theory, and analysis that it is made up of particles that we cannot see, and we can analyze the properties of it through experiment. We know that it is made up of molecules. We understand some of the forces that hold it together. And this is the first time we knew this. We didn't know it before. Srila Prabhupada. But what is the benefit? Even if you knew every particle of this grass, what would be the benefit? The grass is growing. It will grow with or without your knowledge. You may know it or not know it, but it will not make any difference. Anything you like, you may study from a material analytical point of view. Any nonsense thing you take, you can study and compile a voluminous book. But what will be the use of it? Dr. Benford. I seem to view the world as the sum of its component parts. Srila Prabhupada. Suppose I take this grass. I can write volumes of books. When it came into existence, when it died, and what the fibers are, what the molecules are. In so many ways, I can describe this insignificant foliage. But what is the use of it? Dr. Benford. If it has no use, why did God put it there? Isn't it worthwhile studying? Srila Prabhupada. Our point is that you would rather study the insignificant grass than the God who has created everything. If you could understand Him, then automatically you would understand the grass. But you want to separate His grass from Him, to study it separately. In this way, you can compile volumes and volumes on the subject. But why waste your energy in that way? The branch of a tree is beautiful as long as it is attached to the main trunk. But as soon as you cut it off, it will dry up. Therefore, what is the use of studying the dried up branch? It is a waste of intelligence. Dr. Benford, but why is it a waste? Srila Prabhupada, certainly it is a waste because the result is not useful. Dr. Benford, well, what is useful? Srila Prabhupada, it is useful to know yourself, what you are. Dr. Benford, why is knowledge of myself better than knowledge of a plant? Srila Prabhupada, if you understand what you are, then you understand other things. That is called Atma Tattva, Atma Gnana, self-knowledge. That is important. I am a spirit soul and I am passing through so many species of life. What is my position? I don't wish to die because I am afraid to change bodies. Therefore, I am afraid of death. This question should be raised first. I don't want unhappiness, but unhappiness comes. I don't want death, but death comes. I don't want disease, but disease comes. I don't want to become an old man, but old age comes anyway. What is the reason that these things are coming by force? Who is enforcing these things? I do not know. But these are the real problems. I don't want excessive heat, but there is excessive heat. Why? Who is enforcing these things? Why are they being enforced? I don't want this heat. What have I done? These are real questions, not just studying foliage and writing volumes of books. That is a waste of energy. Study yourself. Understanding the living force. In a statement delivered at a press conference in Los Angeles in December of 1968, Srila Prabhupada challenges the world's intellectual leaders to review their definition of what constitutes life. In the background of this body, you can find the soul, whose presence is perceived by dint of consciousness. Similarly, in the universal body of the cosmic manifestation, one can perceive the presence of the Supreme Lord, or the Absolute Truth by virtue of the presence of superconsciousness. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is a movement aiming at the spiritual reorientation of mankind through the simple process of chanting the holy names of God. The human life is meant for ending the miseries of material existence. Our present-day society is trying to end these miseries by material progress. However, it is visible to all that in spite of extensive material progress, human society is not peaceful. The reason is that the human being is essentially a spirit soul. It is the spirit soul which is the background of the development of the material body. However, the materialistic scientists may deny the spiritual existence in the background of the living force. There is no better understanding than accepting this living force as ultimately the spirit soul within the body. The body is changing from one form to another, but the spirit soul is existing eternally without changes. This fact we can experience even in our own life. Since the beginning of our material body in the womb of our mother, our body has been changing from one shape to another at every second and at every minute. This process is generally known as growth, but actually it is a change of body. On this earth, we can see change of day and night and change of season. The more primitive mentality attributes this phenomena to changes occurring in the sun. For example, in the winter, primitive people think the sun is getting weaker, and at night they presume sometimes that the sun is dead. With more advanced knowledge, we see that the sun is not changing at all in this way. Seasonal and diurnal changes are attributed to the change of the relative positions of the earth and the sun. Similarly, we experience bodily changes from embryo to child to youth to maturity to old age to death. The less intelligent mentality presumes that after death, the spirit soul's existence is forever finished, just as primitive tribes believe that the sun dies at sunset. Actually, however, the sun is rising in another part of the world. Similarly, the soul is accepting another type of body. When the body gets old like an old garment and is no longer usable, the soul accepts another body, just as we accept a new suit of clothes. Modern civilization is practically unaware of this truth. People do not care about the constitutional position of the soul. There are different departments of knowledge in different universities and many technological institutions, all to study and understand the subtle laws of material nature. And there are medical research laboratories to study the physiological condition of the material body. But there is no institution to study the constitutional position of the soul. This is the greatest drawback of materialistic civilization, which is simply an external manifestation of the soul. People are enamored of the glittering manifestation of the cosmic body or the individual body, but they do not try to understand the basic principle of this glittering situation. The body looks very beautiful, working with full energy and exhibiting great traits of talent and wonderful brain work. But as soon as the soul is away from the body, this entire glittering situation of the body becomes useless. Even the great scientists who have offered many wonderful scientific contributions have been unable to trace out the personal self, which is the cause of such wonderful discoveries. The Krishna Consciousness movement, therefore, is basically trying to teach this science of the soul, not in any dogmatic way, but through complete scientific and philosophical understanding. In the background of this body, you can find the soul, whose presence is perceivable by dint of consciousness. Similarly, in the universal body of the cosmic manifestation, one can perceive the presence of the Supreme Lord or the Absolute Truth by virtue of the presence of the Super Soul and Super Consciousness. The Absolute Truth is systematically explained in the Vedanta Sutra, generally known as the Vedanta philosophy, which in turn is elaborately explained by the Srimad Bhagavatam, a commentary by the same author. The Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study of the Srimad Bhagavatam for understanding the constitutional position of the Supreme Lord or the Absolute Truth. An individual soul is understood in three aspects. First, as the consciousness pervading the entire body, then as the spirit soul within the heart, and ultimately as a person. Similarly, the Absolute Truth is first realized as impersonal Brahman, then as localized Super Soul, Paramatma, and at the end, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna is all-inclusive. Or in other words, Krishna is simultaneously Brahman, Paramatma, and the Personality of Godhead, just as every one of us is simultaneously consciousness, soul, and person. The individual person and the Supreme Person are qualitatively one, but quantitatively different. Just like the drop of seawater and the vast mass of seawater, both are qualitatively one. The chemical composition of the drop of seawater and that of the mass of seawater are one and the same. But the quantity of salt and other minerals in the whole sea is many, many times greater than the quantity of salt and other minerals contained in the drop of seawater. The Krishna consciousness movement upholds the individuality of the soul and the Supreme Soul. From the Vedic Upanishads, we can understand that both the Supreme Person or God and the individual person are eternal living entities. The difference is that the Supreme Living Entity or Supreme Person maintains all the innumerable other living entities. In the Christian way of understanding, the same principle is admitted because in the Bible it is taught that the contingent entities should pray to the Supreme Father so that he may supply means of maintenance and give pardon for their sinful activities. So it is understood from every source of scriptural injunction that the Supreme Lord or Krishna is the maintainer of the contingent living entity and that it is the duty of the contingent entity to feel obliged to the Supreme Law. This is the whole background of religious principles. Without these acknowledgments, there is chaos, as we find in our daily experience at the present moment. Everyone is trying to become the Supreme Lord, either socially, politically, or individually. Therefore, there is competition for this false lordship, and there is chaos all over the world, individually, nationally, socially, collectively. The Krishna Consciousness movement is trying to establish the supremacy of the absolute personality of Godhead. One who has attained the human body and intelligence is meant for this understanding, because this consciousness makes his life successful. This Krishna Consciousness movement is not a new introduction by mental speculators. Actually, this movement was started by Krishna himself. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, at least 5,000 years ago, the movement was presented by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. From Bhagavad Gita, we can also understand that he had spoken this system of consciousness long, long before, at least 40 million years ago, when he had imparted it to the sun god Vivaswami. So this movement is not at all new. It is coming down in disciplic succession and from all the great leaders of India's Vedic civilization, including Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, and lately, about 480 years ago, Lord Chaitanya. The disciplic system is still being followed today. The Bhagavad Gita is also very widely used in all parts of the world by great scholars, philosophers, and religionists. But in most cases, the principles are not followed as they are. The Krishna Consciousness movement presents the principles of the Bhagavad Gita as they are, without any misinterpretation. From the Bhagavad Gita, we can understand 5 main principles, namely God, the living entity, the material and spiritual nature, time, and activities. Out of these 5 items, God, the living entity, nature, which is material or spiritual, and time are eternal. But activities are not eternal. Activities in the material nature are different from activities in the spiritual nature. Though the spirit soul is eternal, as we have explained, activities performed under the influence of material nature are temporary. The Krishna Consciousness movement aims at placing the spirit soul in his eternal activities. We can practice eternal activities even when we are materially engaged. To act spiritually simply requires direction, but it is possible under the prescribed rules and regulations. The Krishna Consciousness movement teaches these spiritual activities, and if one is trained in such spiritual activities, one is transferred to the spiritual world, of which we get ample evidence from the Vedic literatures, including the Bhagavad Gita. The spiritually trained person can be transferred to the spiritual world easily by change of consciousness. Consciousness is always present because it is a symptom of the living spirit soul. But at the present moment, our consciousness is materially contaminated. For instance, water pouring down from a cloud is pure. But as soon as the water comes in touch with the earth, it becomes muddy immediately. Yet, If we filter the same water, the original clearness can be regained. Similarly, Krishna consciousness is the process of clearing our consciousness. And as soon as our consciousness is clear and pure, we are eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world for our eternal life of knowledge and bliss. This is what we are hankering for in this material world, but we are being frustrated at every step on account of material contamination. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement should be taken very seriously by the leaders of human society. The science of spiritual life. What happens to the conscious self at the time of death? On October 10, 1975, in Westville, South Africa, Srila Prabhupada explains the science of reincarnation to Dr. S.P. Oliver, rector of the University of Durban. Dr. Oliver, we are left in this 20th century, this last part of the century, with a new global search for the truth about the spiritual. We, of course, in the Western world are not familiar with the Bhagavad Gita. Our problem is basically, I think, the one that you raised in your lecture. How do we make the spiritual a scientific reality? And I think you are quite right. I think really few people get the point that you are trying to make, that this is a scientific matter. Srila Prabhupada. That is the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, scientifically presenting spiritual knowledge. Therefore, I raised the question, what is transmigration of the soul? Nobody could reply properly. We are changing bodies. There are so many varieties of bodies, and we may enter into any one of them after death. This is the real problem of life. Prakriti kriyamanani gunaih karmani sarvashaha. Nature is working, providing us with material bodies. This body is a machine. This machine, just like a car, has been offered to us by material nature by the order of God, Krishna. So the real purpose of life is to stop this perpetual transmigration from one body to another, and revive our original spiritual position so that we can live an eternal blissful life of knowledge. That is the aim of life. Dr. Oliver, the conception of transmigration is that, of course, is the Christian religion. Srila Prabhupada, it is not a question of religion. Religion is a kind of faith that develops according to time and circumstances. The reality is that we are spirit souls. By the laws of material nature, we are carried from one body to another. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes distressed. Sometimes in the heavenly planets, sometimes in lower planets. And human life is meant for stopping this process of transmigration and reviving our original consciousness. We have to go back home, back to Godhead, and live eternally. This is the whole scheme of Vedic literature. The Bhagavad Gita gives the synopsis of how to act in this life. Therefore, through the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, we can begin to understand the constitutional position of the soul. First of all, we have to understand what we are. Am I this body or something else? This is the first question. I was trying to answer this, but some people in my audience thought it was a kind of Hindu culture. It is not Hindu culture. It is a scientific conception. You are a child for some time, then you become a boy, then you become a young man, and then you become an old man. In this way, you're always changing bodies. This is a fact. It is not a Hindu conception of religion. It applies to everyone. Dehinosmin yatha dehe, kaumaram yavanam jara, tatha dehantara praptir, dhirastatra namukhyati. To a devotee, find this verse. Devotee reads, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Bhagavad Gita 2.13. Srila Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita, everything is explained very logically, very scientifically. It is not a sentimental explanation. Dr. Oliver. The problem as I see it is how to get modern man to make an in-depth study of what is contained or outlined in this book, especially when he's caught up in an educational system that denies a place for this very concept and even the philosophy of it. There is either complete neutrality or just a simple rejection of these truths. Srila Prabhupada, they do not accept the soul. Dr. Oliver, they accept the soul, I think so, but they do not care to analyze what it means. Srila Prabhupada, without analyzing this, what is their situation? First of all, they should analyze the distinction between a dead body and a living body. The body is always dead, just like a motor car without a driver. The car is always a lump of matter. Similarly, this body, with or without the soul, is a lump of matter. Dr. Oliver, it is not worth very much. I think around 56 cents. Srila Prabhupada. But if one cannot distinguish between the car and the driver of the car, then he is just like a child. A child thinks the car is running automatically, but that is his foolishness. There is a driver. The child may not know, but when he is a grown-up and has been educated and still he does not know, then what is the meaning of his education? Dr. Oliver. In the Western world, the whole range of education covers only primary, secondary, and tertiary education. There is no place for an in-depth study of the soul. Srila Prabhupada. I talked with one professor in Moscow. Maybe you know him, Professor Katowski. He teaches at the Soviet Academy of Sciences. I had a talk with him for about an hour. He said after this body is annihilated, everything is finished. I was surprised that he told me this. He is known to be a very good scholar, yet still he does not know about the soul. Dr. Oliver, we have an Indology course here given by a scholar from Vienna. But what he teaches, what kind of basic philosophy, I would not know. There are about 40 students. In essence, they ought to start by making a detailed study of the Bhagavad Gita and use that as a basis for their whole philosophy. Srila Prabhupada. So why not appoint someone to teach Bhagavad Gita as it is? That is essential. Dr. Oliver, our university almost has an obligation to make a study of these points in depth. Srila Prabhupada. By thoroughly studying Bhagavad Gita, one begins his spiritual education. Dr. Oliver, well, this is apparently what one needs. Our Hindu community here in South Africa seems to lack any fixed idea of what constitutes Hinduism. The young people especially are living in a complete vacuum. For various reasons, they do not want to accept religion because this is what they see around them. They cannot identify with the Christian religion, the Islamic religion, or the Hindu religion. They are largely ignorant. Srila Prabhupada, they should be shown the right path. This is the original, authentic path. Dr. Oliver, there are not very many great scholars in South Africa amongst our Indian community. The Indian people came by and large and as workers on the sugar plantations, field workers. A few were jewelers and tailors and so on. Then for the last 100 years, there was a political struggle, resisting transportation back to India. They were fighting to make a living and to find their own place in this country. As I see it, they must give meaning to the essence of their own beliefs and faith. I have been telling them that we are privileged to have them here in this country with their background and that they must not cut themselves away from it and drift into a vacuum. But they don't know to whom they should turn. So basically, they and myself and others want to know how we get this spirit into our own hearts. And how does this then issue out into everyday living? Srila Prabhupada. This is all explained in the Bhagavad Gita. How to live peacefully in this world and how to go back home, back to Godhead. Dr. Oliver, but how does one get modern man to voluntarily make this experiment? The real tragedy is we have wandered so far away from the spirit that we do not know where to start. And we can't get a few dozen honest believers to sit down and try to find out how much God wants to give of his mind to our minds. Srila Prabhupada, God is giving himself. We just have to accept him. That requires a little advancement. Otherwise, everything is there. God says that the soul is eternal and the body is changing. It is a very simple example. A boy becomes a young man and a young man becomes an old man. There is no denying this fact. I can understand and you can understand it. It is very simple. I remember that as a boy I was jumping, and I cannot do that now because I have a different body. So I am conscious that I possessed a body like that. Now I do not possess it. The body is changing, but I am the same person eternally. It requires a little intelligence to see this, that's all. I am the owner of the body and I am an eternal soul. The body is changing. Dr. Oliver. Now, having accepted that, a further problem then arises. What are the implications? Srila Prabhupada, yes. If I understand that I am not this body, yet at the present moment I am engaged only in to keep my body comfortable without taking care of myself, that is wrong. For example, if I am cleansing this shirt and coat thrice daily, but I am hungry, that would be impractical. Similarly, this civilization is wrong in this basic way. If I take care of your shirt and coat, but I don't give you anything to eat, then how long will you be satisfied? That is my point. That is the basic mistake. Material civilization means taking care of the body and bodily comforts. But the owner of the body, the spirit soul, gets no care. Therefore, everyone is restless. They are changing the ism from capitalism to communism. But they do not know what the mistake is. Dr. Oliver. There is very little difference. They are both material. Srila Prabhupada. The communists think that if we take control of the government, everything will be adjusted. But the mistake is there. Both the communists and the capitalists are taking care of the external body, not the eternal identity, the soul. The soul must be peaceful. Then everything will be peaceful. Bhaktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gnatva mam shanti mrichyati. To a devotee, read that verse. Devotee. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Bhagavad Gita 5.29. Srila Prabhupada. This means that one must know that what God is. Because you are part and parcel of God, you already have a very intimate relationship with Him. Our business is knowing God. So at the present moment, there is no information. People have no complete idea. Dr. Oliver. Well, I believe that if a satellite in the sky can reveal what is happening from one pole to other pole, then surely God can reveal His spirit and His mind to anyone who wants to obey Him, who wants to know Him, and who sincerely wants to follow Him. Srila Prabhupada, yes, yes. So here in the Bhagavad Gita, God is explaining Himself. We have to take it by logic and reason. Then it will be a clear understanding of God. Dr. Oliver, yes, but how to get this across? Srila Prabhupada, the teaching is there. We have to understand it by authoritative discussion. Dr. Oliver, I think so. This is probably where one has to start. We have to sit down and discuss this, much the same as some professors would discuss any scientific experiment. Srila Prabhupada, the process for understanding is described here. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gnanam gnaninas tattvadarshinaha. To a devotee. Find out that verse. Devotee. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Bhagavad Gita 4.34. Srila Prabhupada, read the purport. Devotee. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord Himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. The Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.19 says, Dharmantu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant, without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for a spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of a spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. Srila Prabhupada. The practical example is here. These European and American boys are coming from well-to-do families. Why are they serving me? I am Indian, coming from a poor country. I cannot pay them. When I came to the West, I had no money. I brought only 40 rupees. That was only an hour's expenditure in America. So their soul is to carry out my instruction. And therefore, they are making progress. Pranipatena pariprashnena. They are asking questions. I am trying to reply to them. And they have all got full faith. They are serving like menial servants. That is the process. If the spiritual master is bona fide and the disciple is very sincere, then the knowledge will be there. This is the secret. Yasya deve para bhaktir yadha deve tadha gurau. Vedic knowledge is revealed unto those who have faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master. Therefore, in Vedic society, the students are automatically sent to the Gurukula, the place of the spiritual master, regardless of whether one is a king's son or from some other background. Even Krishna had to go to Gurukula. There is a story that once Krishna went with a classmate to the forest to collect dry wood for his spiritual master. Suddenly there was a heavy storm, and they could not get out of the forest. The whole night they remained in the forest with great difficulty. The next morning, the Guru, their teacher, along with other students, came to the forest and found them. So even Krishna, whom we accept as the Supreme Lord, had to go to Gurukula and serve the spiritual master as a menial servant. So all of the students at the Gurukula learned how to be very submissive and how to live only for the benefit of the Guru. They are trained from the very beginning to be first-class submissive students. Then the Guru, out of affection and with an open heart, teaches the boys all he knows. There is no question of money. It is all done on the basis of love and education. Dr. Oliver, I might have difficulty accepting parts of what you have indicated here, simply because I don't know. But basically, I accept that God lives in us, and that when we leave things to Him, He knows how to direct these things. The challenge is living life so that He will be satisfied. This is where the difficulty comes in. You need the inspiration to be disciplined. This will only become a reality in one's life if one practices it, and practices it with others who share this commitment. Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, we have this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, showing how to live a life of dedication to God. That is required. Without practical life in God consciousness, it remains simply theoretical. That may help, but it takes longer. My students are being trained up in the practical spiritual life, and they are established. Dr. Oliver, I want to thank you very much, and I pray that God will bless your visit to our country and our people here. Srila Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. Reincarnation explained. Remembrance of past lives can be fascinating. But the real goal of understanding reincarnation is to become free from the painful cycle of birth and death. In a lecture delivered in London in August of 1973, Srila Prabhupada warns, this is not a very good business to die and take birth again. We know that when we die, we will have to enter again into the womb of a mother. And nowadays, mothers are killing the children within the womb. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhirastatra namukhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth and then to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Bhagavad Gita 2.13. Generally, people cannot understand this simple verse. Therefore, Krishna says, Dhirastatra namukhyati. Only a sober man can understand. But what is the difficulty? How plainly Krishna has explained things. There are three stages of life. The first, Kaumaram, lasts until one is 15 years old. Then from the 16th year, one begins youthful life, Yavanam. Then after the 40th or 50th year, one becomes an old man, Jara. So those who are Dhira, sober-hearted, cool-headed, they can understand. I have changed my body. I remember how I was playing and jumping when I was a boy. Then I became a young man and I was enjoying my life with friends and family. Now I am an old man, and when this body dies, I shall again enter a new body. In the previous verse, Krishna said to Arjuna, all of us, you, me, and all these soldiers and kings who are present here, we existed in the past, we are existing now, and we shall continue to exist in the future. This is Krishna's statement. But rascals will say, how was I existing in the past? I was born only in such and such a year. Before that, I was not existing. At the present time, I am existing, that's all right. But as soon as I die, I will not exist. But Krishna says, you, I, all of us, we were existing, we are still existing, and we shall continue to exist. Is that wrong? No, it's a fact. Before our birth, we were existing in a different body. And after our death, we shall continue to exist in a different body. This is to be understood. For example, 70 years ago, I was a boy. Then I became a young man. And now I have become an old man. My body has changed, but I, the proprietor of the body, am existing unchanged. So where is the difficulty in understanding? Dohinosmin yatha dehe. Dehina means the proprietor of the body. And dehe means in the body. The body is changing, but the soul, the proprietor of the body, remains unchanged. Anyone can understand that his body has changed. So in the next life, the body will also change. But we may not remember. That is another thing. In my last life, what was my body? I do not remember. So forgetfulness is our nature. But our forgetting something does not mean that it did not take place. No, in my childhood, I did so many things I do not remember. But my father and mother remembered. So forgetting does not mean that things did not take place. Similarly, death simply means I have forgotten what I was in my past life. That is death. Otherwise, I, as spirit souls, have no death. Suppose I change my clothes. In my boyhood, I wore certain clothes. In my youth, I wore different clothes. Now, in my old age, as a sannyasi, a renunciant, I am wearing different clothes. The clothes may change, but that does not mean that the owner of the clothes is dead and gone. No. This is a simple explanation of transmigration of the soul. Also, all of us are individuals. There is no question of merging together. Every one of us is an individual. God is an individual, and we are also individuals. Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam. Of all the eternal conscious individual persons, one is supreme. The difference is that God never changes his body, but we change our bodies in the material world. When we go to the spiritual world, there is no more change of body. Just as Krishna has his Satchitananda Vigraha, an eternal form of bliss and knowledge. So when you go back home, back to Godhead, you will also get a similar body. The difference is that even when Krishna comes to the material world, he does not change his body. Therefore, one of his names is Achyuta, he who never falls. Krishna never changes, he never falls down because he is the controller of Maya, the material energy. We are controlled by the material energy, and Krishna is the controller of the material energy. That is the difference between Krishna and us. And not only does he control the material energy, but he controls the spiritual energy also. All energies. Everything that we see, everything manifested, that is Krishna's energy. Just as heat and light are the energies of the sun, everything manifested is made up of the energies of Krishna. There are many energies, but they have been divided into three principal ones: the external energy, the internal energy, and the marginal energy. We living entities are the marginal energy. Marginal means that we may remain under the influence of the external energy, or we may remain under the influence of the internal energy, as we like. The independence is there. After speaking Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, Yadhechasi tadha kuru. Whatever you like, you can do. Krishna gives this independence to Arjuna. He does not force one to surrender. That is not good. Something forced will not stand. For example, we advise our students, rise early in the morning. This is our advice. We do not force anyone. Of course, we may force someone once or twice, but if he does not practice it, force will be useless. Similarly, Krishna does not force Krishna does not force anyone to leave this material world. All conditioned souls are under the influence of the external or material energy. Krishna comes here to deliver us from the clutches of material energy. Because we are part and parcel of Krishna, we are all directly Krishna's sons. And if a son is in difficulty, the father suffers also, indirectly. Suppose the son has become a madman, or nowadays a hippie. The father is very sorry. Oh, my son is living like a wretch. So the father is not happy. Similarly, the conditioned souls in this material world are suffering so much, living like wretches and rascals. So Krishna is not happy. Therefore, he comes personally to teach us how to return to him. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati tadatmanam sujamyaham. When Krishna comes, he comes in his original form. But unfortunately, we understand Krishna to be one of us. In one sense, he is one of us, since he is the father and we are his sons. But he is the chief. Nicho nichanam chetanas chetananam. He is more powerful than us. He is the most powerful, the supreme powerful. We have a little power, but Krishna has infinite power. That is the difference between Krishna and us. We cannot be equal to God. Nobody can be equal to Krishna or greater than him. Everyone is under Krishna. Ekali Ishvara Krishna or Sabhabhrucha. Everyone is the servant of Krishna. Krishna is the only master. Bhaktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. I am the only enjoyer, I am the proprietor, Krishna says, and that is the fact. So we are changing our body, but Krishna does not change his. We should understand this. The proof is that Krishna remembers past, present, and future. In the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you will find that Krishna says he spoke the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some 120 million years ago. How does Krishna remember? Because he does not change his body. We forget things because we are changing our body at every moment. That is a medical fact. The corpuscles of our blood are changing at every second. But the body is changing imperceptibly. That is why the father and mother of a growing child do not notice how his body is changing. A third person, if he comes after some time and sees that the child has grown, says, oh, the child has grown so big. But the father and mother have not noticed that he has grown so big because they are always seeing him and the changes are taking place imperceptibly at every moment. So our body is always changing, but I, the soul, the proprietor of the body, am not changing. This is to be understood. We are all individual souls and we are eternal. But because our body is changing, we are suffering birth, death, old age, and disease. The Krishna consciousness movement is meant to get us out of this changing condition. Since I am eternal, how can I come to the permanent position? That should be our question. Everyone wants to live eternally. Nobody wants to die. If I come before you with a revolver and say, I'm going to kill you, you will immediately cry out because you do not want to die. This is not a very good business, to die and take birth again. It is very troublesome. This we all know subconsciously. We know that when we die, we will have to enter again into the womb of a mother. And nowadays, mothers are killing the children within the womb. Then again, another mother. The process of accepting another body again and again is a very long and very troublesome. In our subconscious, we remember all this trouble and therefore we do not want to die. So our question should be this: I am eternal, so why have I been put into this temporary life? This is an intelligent question, and this is our real problem. But rascals set aside this real problem. They are thinking of how to eat, how to sleep, how to have sex, and how to defend. And if you eat nicely and sleep nicely, ultimately you have to die. The problem of death is there, but they don't care about this real problem. They are very much alert to solve the temporary problems, which are not actually problems at all. The birds and beasts also eat, sleep, have sexual intercourse, and defend themselves. They know how to do all these things, even without the human being's education and so-called civilization. So these things are not our real problems. The real problem is that we do not want to die, but death takes place. That is our real problem. But the rascals do not know it. They're always busy with temporary problems. For example, suppose there is a severe cold. This is a problem. We have to set out a nice coat or a fireplace, and if these are not available, we are in distress. So severe cold is a problem, but it is a temporary problem. Severe cold winter has come and it will go. It is not a permanent problem. My permanent problem is that because of ignorance, I am taking birth. I am accepting disease. I am accepting old age. And I am accepting death. These are my real problems. Therefore, Krishna says, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanudarsinam. Those who are actually in knowledge see these four problems: birth, death, old age, and disease. Now, Krishna says, Dherastatra Namukhyati. A sober man is not perplexed at the time of death. If you prepare yourself for death, why should you be perplexed? For example, if in your childhood and boyhood you prepare yourself nicely, if you become educated, then you will get a nice job, a nice situation, and be happy. Similarly, if you prepare yourself in this life for going back home, back to Godhead, then where is your perplexity at the time of death? There is no perplexity. You will know, I am going to Krishna. I am going back home, back to Godhead. Now I will not have to change material bodies. I will have my spiritual body. Now I shall play with Krishna and dance with Krishna and eat with Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness, to prepare yourself for the next life. Sometimes a dying man cries out, because according to karma, those who are very, very sinful see horrible scenes at the time of death. The sinful man knows he is going to accept some abominable type of body. But those who are pious, the devotees, die without any anxiety. Foolish people say, you devotees are dying, and the non-devotees are also dying. So what is the difference? There is a difference. A cat catches her kitten in its mouth, and it also catches the mouse in its mouth. Superficially, we may see that the cat has caught both the mouse and the kitten in the same way. But there are differences of catching. The kitten is feeling pleasure. Oh, my mother is carrying me. And the mouse is feeling death. Oh, now I'm going to die. This is the difference. So although both devotees and non-devotees die, there is a difference of feeling at the time of death. Just like the kitten and the mouse. Don't think that both of them are dying in the same way. The bodily process may be the same, but the mental situation is different. In Bhagavad Gita 4.11, Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mam eti sorjuna. If you simply try to understand Krishna, you can go to him at the time of death. Everything about Krishna is divine, transcendental. Krishna's activities, Krishna's appearance, Krishna's worship, Krishna's temple, Krishna's glories, everything is transcendental. So if one understands these things or even tries to understand, then one becomes liberated from the process of birth and death. This is what Krishna says. So become very serious to understand Krishna and remain in Krishna consciousness. Then these problems, birth, death, old age, and disease, will be solved automatically, very easily. A sober man will think, I want to live eternally. Why does death take place? I want to live a very healthy life. Why does disease come? I don't want to become an old man. Why does old age come? Janma mrityu jara vyadhi. These are real problems. One can solve these problems simply by taking to Krishna consciousness, simply by understanding Krishna. And for understanding Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita is there, very nicely explained. So make your life successful. Understand that you are not the body. You are embodied within the body, but you are not the body. For example, a bird may be within a cage, but the cage is not the bird. Foolish persons take care of the cage, not the bird, and the bird suffers starvation. So we are suffering spiritual starvation. Therefore, nobody is happy in the material world. Spiritual starvation. That is why you see that in an opulent country like America, enough food, enough residences, enough material enjoyment, still they are becoming hippies. The young people are not satisfied because of spiritual starvation. Materially, you may be very opulent, but if you starve spiritually, you cannot be happy. A spiritual rejuvenation is required. You must realize, Aham Brahmasmi. I am not this body. I am Brahman, spiritual soul. Then you will be happy. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na sochati na kanchati samasarveshu bhuteshu. Then there will be equality, fraternity, brotherhood. Otherwise, it is all bogus. Simply high-sounding words. There cannot be equality, fraternity, and so on without Krishna consciousness. Come to the spiritual platform. Then you will see everyone equally. Otherwise, you will think, I am a human being with hands and legs, and the cow has no hands and legs. So let me kill the cow and eat it. Why? What right do you have to kill an animal? You have no vision of equality for want of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, in this material world, so-called education, culture, fraternity, all these are bogus. Krishna consciousness is the right subject matter to be studied. Then society will be happy, otherwise not. Thank you very much. The self and its bodies. You are suffering because in your past life you indulged in sense gratification and got a body according to karma. Srila Prabhupada tells listeners at a lecture delivered at the Hare Krishna Center in Detroit, Michigan, in June 1976. He then goes on to explain the secret of how to become free from karma and enjoy perfect happiness. Yadhagnasu tamasa yukta upaste vyaktameva hi naveda purvam avaram nashta janma smritistadha. As a sleeping man acts according to the body manifested in his dreams and accepts to be himself, so one identifies with his present body, which he acquired because of his past religious or irreligious actions, and is unable to know his past or future lives. Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, Chapter 1, text number 49. Here is a very good example of the ignorance that covers the living entity in the material world. When we dream, we forget everything about ourselves, that we are Mr. Such and Such, an inhabitant of such and such a place, with such and such bank balance. Everything is forgotten. And when we awaken, we forget about the dream. But whether we are in the vacant state or in the dreaming state, we are seeing our own activities. In the dream, we are the seer, and in the so-called awake condition, we are also the seer. So we, the spirit soul who is experiencing, remain the same. But the circumstances change and we forget. Similarly, we cannot remember what we were in our previous life. Nor do we know what we are going to become in our next life. But it is a fact that as spirit souls, we are eternal. We existed in the past, we exist at the present time, and we shall continue to exist in the future. Krishna explains this in the Bhagavad Gita 2.12. O Arjuna, you, I, and all these persons who have assembled on this battlefield have existed before, and we shall continue to exist in the future. This is the preliminary understanding in spiritual life, knowing I am eternal. As spirit souls, we do not take birth, nor do we die. Najayate mriyate va kadachit. We are not finished with the destruction of the material body. Nahanyate hanyamane serire. The destruction of the body is going on already. Our childhood body is now destroyed. You cannot find that body. Our youthful body is also destroyed. We cannot find it anymore. And in the same way, our present body will also be destroyed. And we shall get another body. Tadha dehantara praptihi. When the soul transmigrates, the gross body is lost. The gross body is made of matter, and anything material will eventually be finished. That is the nature of matter. But the spirit soul is never finished. So we are changing bodies one after another. Why are there different types of bodies? Because the living entity, the spirit soul, is contacting various modes of material nature. According to what modes are influencing him, the living entity develops a gross body. So we have acquired our present body because of our past activities. Karmana daivanetrena jenturdehopapattaye. One gets a particular type of a body according to his past karma or material activities. Nature acts automatically according to our karma. Suppose you contract some disease, nature will act. You will have to develop that disease and undergo some suffering. Similarly, when we come under the influence of the modes of material nature and perform karmic activities, we must transmigrate from body to body. Nature's law works so perfectly. Now, when we come to civilized human life, we should ask, why am I suffering? The problem is that because we are under the spell of Maya, illusion, we take suffering to be enjoyment. Maya means that which is not. We are thinking we are enjoying, but actually we are suffering. In this material body, we have to suffer. We suffer on the account of the body. Pinching cold, scorching heat. We feel these things on account of the body. Under certain circumstances, we feel pleasure. But in the Bhagavad Gita 2.14, Krishna advises, Matras parshastu kaunteya sitoshna sukhadukkada agamapayino nityas tam sthiti chasva bharata. Material happiness and distress are caused by the body. They come and go just like seasonal changes. So do not be disturbed. Try to tolerate them. As long as we are in this material world, happiness and distress will come and go. So we should not be disturbed by them. Our real business is trying for self-realization. That must go on. It must not stop. Self-realization is the goal of human life. Suffering and so-called happiness will go on as long as we have a material body. But we must come to the knowledge that I am not the body. I am a spirit soul. I have gotten this body because of my past activities. That is knowledge. Now, a sensible man should consider, since I am a spirit soul and my body is simply a covering, is it not possible to end this process of transmigration from body to body? This is human life, inquiring how to stop the contamination of the material body. Unfortunately, in the modern so-called civilization Unfortunately, people in the modern so-called civilization do not ask this question. They are mad after gratifying the senses of the body. So they act irresponsibly. As explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 5, text number 4, Nonam pramattah kurite vikarma yadindriya pritaya aprunoti na sadhu manye yata atmanoyam asanna pikleshada ashadeha. People who act only for sense gratification are certainly mad, and they perform all kinds of abominable activities. In this way, they ensure their transmigration from body to body perpetually, and thus experience all kinds of miseries. We do not understand that the body also is always kleshada. It always gives us pain. For the time being, we may feel some pleasure, but actually the body is a reservoir of pain. Here is a good analogy in this connection. Formerly, when the government officers would want to punish a criminal, they would tie his hands, take him into the middle of a river, and push him down into the water. When he was almost drowned, they would draw him up from the water by his hair and give him a little rest. And then again, they would push him down into the water. That was one system of punishment. Similarly, whatever little pleasure we are experiencing in this material world is exactly like the pleasure the criminal would feel when he was drawn up from the water. Severe suffering with a few moments of relief. This is what life in the material world is like. That is why Sanatana Goswami, who had been a wealthy minister in the Muslim government in India, presented himself to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and asked, Ke ami, kene amaya yare tapatraya. Who am I and why am I suffering the threefold miseries? This is intelligence. We are constantly undergoing some sort of distress, whether caused by the body and mind, inflicted by other living entities, or brought about by natural disturbances. We don't want all these miseries, but they are forced upon us. So when one accepts a spiritual master, the first question should be, why am I suffering? But we have become so dull, like the animals, that we never ask this question. The animals are suffering. Everyone knows this, but they cannot ask why. When an animal is being taken to the slaughterhouse, he cannot ask, why am I being taken by force to the slaughterhouse? But if you take a human being to be killed, he will make a great noise. This man is taking me to be killed. Why am I being killed? So one important distinction between human life and animal life is that only the human being can ask, why am I suffering? Whether you are President Nixon or a man in the street, you are suffering. That's a fact. You are suffering on account of your body, and you are doing something that will cause you to accept another material body. You are suffering because in your past life you indulged in sense gratification and got a body according to karma. And if you engage in sense gratification in this life and do not try to elevate yourself, you will again get a body and suffer. By nature's way, you will get another body according to the mentality you have at the time of death. And as soon as you get another body, your suffering will begin again. Even in the womb of the mother, you will suffer. To remain in that compact bag for many months, hands and legs all tied up, unable to move, this is suffering. And nowadays, there is also a risk of being killed in the womb. And when you come out, more suffering. So we should be intelligent enough to ask, why am I suffering? And how can I stop this suffering? And until we ask, why am I suffering? Our human life has not begun. We remain animals. Asking about the ultimate cause of our suffering is called Brahma Jignasa, inquiry into the absolute truth. As it is said in the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, Adhato Brahma Jignasa. Having gotten the human form of life, one should inquire into Brahman, the absolute truth. So we should take advantage of the human form of life. We should not live like animals, without any inquiry into the absolute truth, without trying to find out how to stop our miserable material life. Of course, we are actually trying to stop our own miseries by working so hard in the struggle for existence. Why do we try to get money? Because we think if I get money, my distress will be mitigated. So the struggle for existence is going on, and everyone is trying to become happy by getting sense gratification. But sense gratification is not real happiness. Real happiness is spiritual happiness, which comes from serving Krishna. That is happiness. Material happiness is simply perverted happiness. Material happiness is like the mirage of water in the desert. In the desert, there is no water. But when a thirsty animal sees the mirage of water in the desert, he runs after it and dies. We know that there is no water in the desert, that the water is just a reflection of the sunshine. But animals do not know this. Similarly, human life means to give up looking for happiness through sense gratification, which is just like a mirage in the desert, and to try for spiritual happiness. We can awaken to this higher happiness simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chanting Hare Krishna is such a simple thing, yet it can relieve all our suffering in the material world. Our suffering is caused by the many dirty things within our heart. We are just like a criminal who has dirty things within his heart. He thinks if I get such and such a thing, I will be happy. And at the risk of his life, he commits a crime. A burglar, a thief knows that if he is captured by the police, he will be punished. But still, he goes and steals. Why? Nonam pramatta. He has become mad after sense gratification. That's all. So we have to purify our hearts of our dirty desires, which are forcing us to act for sense gratification and suffer. And in this age, the purification is very, very easy. Just chant Hare Krishna. That's all. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's contribution. Cheto Darpanamarjanam Bhavamahadavagni Nirvapanam. If you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, you will be relieved of the suffering caused by transmigrating perpetually from body to body. Chanting is such a simple thing. There is no question of caste, creed, nationality, color, or social position. No. By the grace of God, everyone has a tongue and ears. So everyone can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So we're going to stop here reading this book, and we'll continue chapter 2 onwards in the second part. Thank you for joining in this program, in this reading, and we hope that you will join us in part 2 of reading the journey of self-discovery. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.